Hi folks, Harry here, and today I'm going to be talking about how I annotate books. So whether you're watching this video just to hear my opinion, or if you're watching this video to look for genuine advice, I really hope I have something in this video that can help you out. So today I'm going to show you 4 books which I have annotated in the past, all of which I have annotated in a slightly different way. And I really think that that could be beneficial to show you just in case one style of annotation does not match what you're used to. So let's just get right on with the video. So the first book that I want to show you is Frankenstein by Mary Shelley. This light is not doing well for the cover. So I read this book very, very recently, gave it 5 stars, absolutely loved it, and I annotated the crap out of it. It is chock full of my thoughts, and I have so many opinions about this book. But that's not what I'm going to talk about today. Maybe I'll talk about this book in a different video. I have something planned, so stay tuned. So believe it or not, I actually read Frankenstein and annotated Frankenstein purely for pleasure. There are 2 reasons why people annotate books. One is for pleasure and one is for studying. But sometimes those 2 can clash. I read this book for pleasure and I annotated this book for pleasure while still thinking in my mind that annotating it might be beneficial for my education in the future. So this book is absolutely filled with loads of notes and annotations. But you don't have to take a book and fill it with a million tabs and a million notes. You can take a book just like this. This is Ignite Me by Tahereh Mafi. It is the 3rd book in the Shatter Me series, and I just randomly decided to annotate this one day because I thought, oh, there's stuff in here that I want to note down and I want to remember. And if you look, my annotations are a lot less dense. And another book that I've annotated is Eclipse by Stephenie Meyer, the 3rd book in the Twilight series. I annotated this purely for pleasure, and I noted every single time Bella was immature, every single time I hated Jacob Black, and every single time I loved Edward. So they're a little bit less dense than, say, my annotations for Frankenstein, because obviously Twilight is not high literature, and there's not really that much skill put into it. But right now, I am reading The Great Gatsby by F. Scott Fitzgerald, which I'm absolutely loving, and I'm not tabbing this at all. I'm simply just going through this with a pencil. So this copy was previously owned by my brother as he was studying it for his A-levels, and the copy has been passed down to me. And this is something that I highly recommend that you do if you're wanting to read a book that you are wanting to annotate. I think it is highly beneficial to get a used copy of a book filled with someone else's annotations and thoughts. It's especially helpful if you know the person who gave you the book, rather than just buying it online from a used bookshop, because then you can actually converse with the person. As I've been reading The Great Gatsby, I have been updating my brother as I go through it with all of my thoughts. So all of the highlighting in this book and all of the blue pen, that is my brother's work. And I absolutely love looking at his thoughts as I read this book, because it's offering a completely different perspective and it's notifying me of themes that I may not have noticed before, and just generally is really, really fun to see how another person viewed this book. But at the end of the day, whether you annotate a book like this, like this, like this, or like this, just with a pencil without any tabs, all of these have one thing in common, and that is every single thing that has been noted is something worth remembering. Even an absolutely trash book like Eclipse still has things that you may want to remember in the future. But obviously on the complete other end of the spectrum with something like Frankenstein, which I can safely say is filled with hundreds of tabs and highlighted passages and underlined sentences and phrases and jam-packed filled with my thoughts. It's the exact same thing as Eclipse. These are all things that I want to remember. Okay, so now I'm going to get into the video that is probably going to be the most useful, and that is my tabbing system. Whenever I share anything online showing an annotated or tabbed book, people always ask me, how do you annotate your books? And it is such a difficult question to answer because, like I just showed you, I annotate every single book differently. But that is something really, really important to remember. I annotate every single book differently because every single book is different. So for a book like Eclipse, I just put pink as the bits where Bella was annoying. I put green as the bits where Jacob was annoying, that sort of thing. I just assigned different colours to different things I wanted to remember. With Ignite Me, I did a very similar thing. I just assigned different characters different colours, but this time I did something a little bit different. I used pink tabs to note brilliant bits of writing, because Tahira Mafi is one of my favourite writers. I think she is so poetic and talented, and her writing is just beautiful. So all of the pink tabs show the parts of the writing that I just think are extremely well done. And the purple tabs are showing moments that I think are important in the story and moments that I don't want to forget. So if I decide to return to this book in the future, I can give myself a quick recap by looking at all of the purple notes and just reminding myself of the key moments. But I think most of you, if you've just stumbled across this video, or you've deliberately searched for a video about how to annotate books, you're probably looking for something a little bit more like this. So this is what I'm going to focus on. So for Frankenstein, I had a very specific tabbing system, and something that I have been meaning to do that I haven't actually done yet, and is also something I think is incredibly important for annotating, especially with classics, is to make a key somewhere on the first few pages of what your tabs mean. Because if you visit this book again in the future to look at the things that you have annotated, but you can't remember what the hell you were annotating and why you annotated certain things, it's going to be a little bit confusing. But for me, I very easily remember the things that I have annotated, but also I can turn to whatever colour multiple times and I can just see the common features of the things that I have tabbed with that colour, if that makes sense. So this is an 1818 gothic horror novel, so there are certain things in this that I can tab, and I can also use this exact tabbing system for other similar gothic horror novels. So if I wanted to annotate Dracula, I have read this by the way, I just haven't annotated it. If I decided to annotate Dracula, I could use a very similar tabbing system for Frankenstein, because I know that they have similarities. Books within the same genre, especially within the same subgenre, have very similar tropes and motifs, and a motif is basically just a reoccurring theme. So for Frankenstein specifically, I'm going to run through the, I think, 8 different colours that I have used for specific things that I wanted to note down. I'm going to go in order of the rainbow. So starting with red, all of the red tabs that I've put in this book are any symbolism of death. This is a very common thing to find in gothic horror, so things like morbid semantic fields are very important to note. The orange tabs are probably the most unorganised for me, because those are just key things that I want to remember that don't quite fit in with other tabs. So whenever I use orange tabs in books, it always refers to anything that doesn't suit the rest of the tabs. The yellow ones, I think, for classics are the most important for me, because that is any religious imagery. Obviously, in classics, religious imagery is definitely something that should be noted, because it is so abundant in classics. Especially in gothic horror, people tend to be quite blasphemous. And obviously in 1818 this was not socially acceptable, so it's just something that is fun to note and maybe analyse. So any references to God, heaven, Satan, damnation, anything like that I have tabbed with yellow. Specifically for Frankenstein, I thought it was appropriate for green to represent any descriptions of the monster. Pretty specific to Frankenstein, but I thought I should mention it here. There's 2 different blues that I've used. For light blue, I've got any references to social class, and for dark blue, I have any references to mental health, sadness, grief, anything like that. Pink was noting something very specific, and it was the semantic field of human bodies. There's a lot of things in Frankenstein that talk about human bodies, anatomy, blood, hearts, that sort of thing, so I tabbed those in pink. And lastly, I think this one is probably one of the most important, and it is purple, and that is gothic tropes, motifs. I think this is highly important for anyone who's analysing classics, and it is to choose a specific tab to note down any use of motifs and typical tropes within that genre. So a lot of gothic motifs are things like fog or faraway lands, that sort of thing. It's something that occurs a lot in gothic horror. And because Frankenstein, in my opinion, is basically the epitome of gothic horror, I think it was very important for me to note down some of these gothic motifs. So right now in school I'm studying The Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, and I am only going through that with a pencil. underlining the notable passages and writing general notes on the side. That is quite possibly something that you will want to do. Maybe if you don't have access to tabs, or if you don't generally like the way that tabs look, just going through it with a pencil is good enough. Personally, I love using tabs because it allows me to flip directly to anything that I want to talk about. I guarantee that every single thing that I've tabbed in here, I could get a paragraph out of. And considering that I've got 50 flicking million tabs in here, I could write thousands of words about this book. Actually, I have a full spoiler-free review of Frankenstein on my Goodreads, and I will leave that in the description below if you're interested. In case you're wondering, these are the tabs that I use. They are about £2 for a single pack of these on Amazon, and they are 160 individual tabs, and there's 8 different colours, so there's 20 of each. These tabs are absolutely perfect for me. I have absolutely no problems with them. They're just absolutely fantastic, so these are the ones that I stick with. But really, at the end of the day, whether you're deeply annotating a classic for a thorough review, or if you're just lightly tabbing and underlining small passages from a simple YA novel, every single book has things that you should probably note down. You don't have to note things down, obviously you can just read books. But books are worth your time. They are worth combing through, especially classics. And there is always something that you can find in a book which you will love. That's going to be it for this video. Let me know what your tabbing systems are like in the comments down below, because I'd really like to know. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a big fat thumbs up, and please consider subscribing for more bookish content from me. All of my social media links are in the description below, and I will see you next time with another video. Goodbye.